After years of missing, Splinter Cell Pandora Tomorrow is finally back on Steam. This is the second entry in the iconic stealth franchise. It had vanished from digital stores, but it seems somebody somewhere finally found a CD with it and they decided to bring it back. It's now on Steam, Epic Games and other stores. And not only that, they've now bundled the entire Splinter Cell series on Steam. So for the first time ever, you can own and play every Splinter Cell game on PC. From the original 2002 classic through Chaos Theory all the way to Blacklist. Let's go through all of them one by one and see how they perform on the Steam Deck. Now the first Splinter Cell still feels very special. Dark corridors, slow pacing and shadows that actually matter. It runs completely offline, no Ubisoft Connect, no DRM check, nothing. Just click play and you're in. Even though the game originally came out on Xbox, there is no controller support for PC. However, there is a solid community controller layout that maps most functions properly. However, a few spots will still require the deck's on-screen keyboard, which you can access by hitting Steam and X. The community layout is pretty amazing. It's been made by a guy called Stuger, so shout out to him, and it really enables you to play the game without any issues. Now by default, the analog sensitivity is way too high, but adjusting the in-game mouse sensitivity actually fixes that. Now on the OLED, the lighting and shadows are a highlight of this game. Those early Unreal Engine shadows pop more vividly than they ever did on my old CRT when I played this back in 2002. Now battery life at 60 FPS is exceptional, around 7 hours and 30 minutes, dropping to about 6 hours and 45 minutes if you uncap the game and run it at 90 FPS. Yes, you can run the game at 90 FPS. It looks absolutely fantastic. The gameplay still holds up. Now if you've never played this game, movement can feel a bit rough. It's very simple, but it's very deliberate and you will feel each step and you have to take it slow. There's no issues with stability or crashes. This game performs like you would expect for a 20-year-old game. It's absolutely fantastic and I think it has aged very well. My verdict for this one is that it's a perfect starting point. If you want to experience the Splinter Cell franchise, you can absolutely start with the first game. Even though it's very old, it will be smooth, atmospheric and surprisingly polished on the Steam Deck once you figure out the controls. This is the big one. Pandora Tomorrow finally returns to Steam after vanishing for years. Now this game does require Ubisoft Connect. Unfortunately, it seems we can't get rid of that one. When you launch it, initially you will be asked to log in, and after logging in you can even launch it offline and you can play without internet. However, every time you try to launch it offline, you will have to enter your password. It's a bit of a ritual, but you have to launch it and then hit continue offline and you're gonna be in. It's very annoying, but at least you can do it. Now once inside the game, the improvements over the first game are pretty clear. Lighting and shadows have been taken to the next level. However, cinematics are capped at 24 FPS. They're not lagging, it's just locked to that cinematic frame rate. That's how they were rendered. They run pretty fine. I didn't have any issues with that. Now controller support, again, non-existent. And this time around there aren't many community layouts because the game just came out, which is why I took the original layout from the first game and I recreated it for this one and I've uploaded it. You can find it in the community layout tab. There are a couple of new mechanics like whistle and binoculars, which I've also added buttons for that. You will have to use the back paddles on the Steam Deck, but pretty much everything has been set up and I've named all of the inputs, so you can always go to the controller layout. You can check what button does what and it should feel like it did in the first game. Performance wise, the game hits 60 FPS consistently without any issues. However, it doesn't seem to support 90 FPS. I wasn't able to play it at 90 FPS for some reason. I'm not sure why. Battery life sits at around 4 hours and 30 minutes, significantly lower, but it's still good for long stealth sessions. Sensitivity will need tuning again, but you can do that again from within the game, and once fixed, the gameplay feels fluid. It's pretty surreal seeing Pandora Tomorrow alive on Steam again. I remember playing it back in the day and it was definitely not on Steam when I played it. I must have had a physical copy, or maybe I played it on Xbox, I'm not sure. But now it runs, there's no patches, no mods, just official re-release in 2025. It seems Ubisoft is trying to grab any sort of money they can, so they're re-releasing old classics. My verdict, this is a historical comeback that plays well once configured. It's worth replaying just for its legacy. Now we get to the series high point. I think this one is a favorite for a lot of people. It's Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. It's everything the first two games tried to be, but perfected. It has larger levels, more gadgets, and multiple infiltration routes. The Steam Deck runs it beautifully. It automatically detects 1280 by 800 16 by 10 resolution, giving you perfect full screen without stretching. Cutscenes are back to 60 FPS and the game offers multiple graphical presets. I run it on the highest possible and it stayed stable throughout. Controller wise, again, there is no native support, but the community layout I used for the first game is now available again, and it mirrors the console version nearly 1-to-1. So if you've played through the first and the second game, the controls will be the same. However, menus are a bit awkward. It seems you can't use the D-pad in the menus, only the left analog stick actually works, but I think that's a minor inconvenience. Now at 60 FPS, the OLED deck lasts for roughly 6 hours, and this one you can play at 90 FPS, and you're looking at around 5 hours and 15 minutes at 90 FPS. I think that's still efficient enough to justify the smoother gameplay. I'm not really sure why you're able to run this one for longer, but for Pandora Tomorrow you could only play it for 4 hours and 30 minutes. Maybe it's because Ubisoft Connect is somehow involved, that's what lowers the value in the previous one. This one doesn't require Ubisoft Connect, and with how the game is presented, I think it makes it the most seamless Splinter Cell experience on the Steam Deck. The atmosphere, the sound design, the slow pacing, it all feels just right. Even after 20 years, this game defines what stealth should feel like. My verdict is that this is the definitive Splinter Cell to replay on the Steam Deck. It's perfect balance of performance, visuals, immersion, and lack of Ubisoft Connect, of course.
Assistant Director Williams. I know who you are. Fisher.
Next up we have Double Agent. Now Double Agent marks the experimental phase and also the first major technical hurdle, not only on the Steam Deck but also on PC. The first time you launch it, the game will try to install ancient physics software and even Xfire, which is a now defunct 2000s multiplayer tool. You can skip both, just press cancel and it will boot fine afterward. If you accidentally try to install them, it's fine, simply restart the game, it will still run. Thankfully, this one doesn't require Ubisoft Connect, but that's where all the good ends. I use the same community layout as the previous games, and controls work flawlessly once mapped. Performance, however, depends on a lot of things. The game offers many graphical options, however, all of them are broken. Most cause visual glitches, screen flicker, incorrect shadows, shader problems, problems with reflections. The fix is to manually edit the settings.ini file, which is found in the games folder, or play on the lowest preset. If you try to play on the next gen preset or you try to customize the graphics to your own liking, it will break the game. If you don't want to deal with changing any settings in the ini file, you can play at the lowest preset. You will have some graphical issues with reflections, but for the most part it will run fine. However, if you do decide to tweak the ini file, it's not that hard. You can simply go to desktop, right click on the game's icon and select open file location, and it will get you to the games folder. There you can open the ini file, and I will have a link in the description with what settings you need to change in order to make it look better. Once you tune all of that, it will run at around 60 FPS with about 6 hours of battery life. It's definitely the most finicky Splinter Cell to tune on the deck, but when it works, it's still worth a look for its morality system and darker story tone. Verdict: this one is playable but pretty fragile. It needs tweaking and a lot of patience before you can get it to run properly.
Just do what you have to do.
I always do, Sam. I always do.
Next up, Splinter Cell Conviction. Now, Conviction was the turning point. Faster, louder, a lot more cinematic. 2 years ago, it used to be completely unsupported and broken. You would have a hard time, first of all, launching it, and when you do launch it, it will only use a couple of CPU cores instead of all cores. But as of now, it works with a few caveats. Now, when you initially launch it, you'll see a pop-up saying the operating system is not supported. Just hit continue, it will try to launch, then it will show that message again, just hit continue again, and finally the game will launch. Now, battery life averages at around 4 hours at max settings, and you can run this game at max settings. However, cutscenes run at 30 FPS, and for some reason they are very choppy and very laggy, and they don't feel great. Gameplay itself will range from 45 FPS to 90 FPS. Yeah, I know what I said. It all has to do with anti-aliasing. So with MSAA set to 8 times, you will hover around 50 to 60 FPS. With MSAA set to 2 times, you can expect around 80 FPS. And turning AA off gives you 90 FPS flat. You can see here in this clip the differences between off and 8 times. There will be some jagged edges. If you don't mind that, I think it's best to either play it at 2 times or turn it off if you're looking to get that 90 FPS experience. Now at 90 FPS, battery life dips to just under 3 hours, but the gameplay is pretty smooth. The game also has full native controller support, however you have to make sure to enable it in the menu and apply a community layout to fix the inverted axis. By default, it's not enabled. You have to go into the menu using the right trackpad. You can navigate and then you can select gamepad, turn that on, and for some reason the controls are inverted, but if you go to community layout and download the first layout, that will fix everything. The game visually holds up better than expected, especially at the native deck resolution. However, there are oddities. Choosing 16:10 aspect ratio stretches the image slightly, so it's best to play it in 16:9 with black bars. My verdict is that this game is playable and stylish. It still has that modern feel, but you have to choose between FPS or some jagged edges. Other than that, it's a pretty great experience on the Steam Deck.
They're calling the attacks the Blacklist.
Blacklist. The Blacklist cannot be stopped.
One unit attack every 7 days.
Not by law.
And finally, Splinter Cell Blacklist, the most modern and still the most polished entry in the series. Now, Blacklist requires Ubisoft Connect, but again, you can run it offline just like Pandora Tomorrow, but every time you try to run it offline, you will have to put in your password. This game, cinematics are also capped to 30 FPS, but they are stable and clean, they're not lagging. And at high preset, you can play this game for 75-80 FPS for about 2 hours of playtime. If you cap the FPS to 60, battery life will extend to about 2 hours and 30 minutes. And ultra settings will also hold 60 FPS with tiny dips to 58-59 FPS when something major happens on screen. It's nothing noticeable in actual gameplay. I suggest to play this either on high or ultra. The game supports both 16:9 and 16:10 aspect ratio. However, if you choose 16:10, all of the characters are stretched out, so this is purely down to preference. Controls are fully native and feel excellent. You don't need to adjust any community layouts, you don't need to download anything. Out of the entire lineup, this is the one that feels most at home on the Steam Deck just because you don't need to adjust much. Visually, this is still impressive even in 2025. I think this one originally came out in 2013, so it's more than 12 years old now. However, it still holds up. And my verdict is that this is the most polished deck experience, excellent performance, modern controls, and visually it still looks pretty great. So that's all Splinter Cell games tested on the Steam Deck in 2025, and after testing all of them, this is my ranking on how they stack up. At first place, Chaos Theory, the smoothest and most complete deck experience. Second place, Blacklist, modern, stable, and still looks great. At third place, Pandora Tomorrow, finally back, nostalgic, plays pretty well once you tweak the controls. Splinter Cell 1 is fourth place, runs flawlessly, pure stealth atmosphere. At fifth place, Conviction, it's a pretty solid experience, even with the performance issues. Sixth place, Double Agent, this is pretty unstable, but playable with the right tweaks. Now with Pandora Tomorrow's return and the full bundle now on Steam, available at a discount through the end of October, I think it's the perfect time to revisit one of gaming's most iconic stealth franchises, all from the comfort of the Steam Deck. And maybe this renewed attention means that we'll finally see a new Splinter Cell game or a remake of the first one sooner rather than later. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like and subscribing for more Steam Deck content. This one took me a few days to film and to edit, so I would really appreciate your support with it. Let me know in the comments which one is your favorite. Have you tried Pandora Tomorrow since it became available? And after you're done with the video, maybe you can check out the Steam Flow curator page where I post recommendations for various games I test on the Steam Deck. I will have an article for each Splinter Cell games there. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.